Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of AI Security Ops. Today we are going to break down some agentic terminology for you. Lately, you've probably been hearing a lot about agentic AI and different terms are being thrown around, and you're probably drowning in that vocabulary that is out there. Lots of different terms that are thrown around like they're interchangeable, but they're not. And so today we're going to go ahead and we're going to untangle those concepts, talk about what each one actually does, and what it actually means for you. So before we get started, though, let's go ahead and let's talk about our sponsors. Black Hills Information Security. If you or your organization are in need of any kind of security services, whether that be AI-driven pen testing, traditional external test, internal test, assume compromise, physical test, wireless test, SOC monitoring services, anything that you can think of security related, we can help you out with. Check us out at blackhillsinfosec.com. Additionally, we have a training branch, which is anti-siphon training, where many of our consultants take the knowledge from their day-to-day activities, they package it up in an easy to digest and affordable format for you to consume to help you level up in your daily role, or maybe get your foot in the door on that new position that you've been looking for. So check them out at antisiphotraining.com. So let's kick this off. So I think we have a bit of an analogy to start out with here, yeah, in terms of agentics or agents, we should say, which is you can kind of think of it like a new employee. And so with that, we have a couple different terms that we can introduce for that. So a prompt can be kind of like the job description of that new employee, how they should, different tasks that they should perform. Skills might be the different procedures that they should follow in completing those tasks. Tools might be, say, the systems they can log into, or just different resources that they have at their disposal to accomplish the task. And then memory might be a notebook that they have where they can jot down different experiences, data that they've gathered that they can use in future tasks. And then we have the concept of sub-agents, which are basically like coworkers or interns that they can delegate tasks to. So let's first dive into prompts. What actually is a prompt outside of the analogy?
I'm going to let Bronwyn take this one because she has an entire training thing on prompts, if I recall correctly.
A prompt is input. A prompt is instructions that you're providing to the LLM. It's how you're performing a query to either extract information or to provide direction in terms of what it is you want the LLM to achieve or perform or research. So what makes a prompt different from programming that most people are used to is because it can go in so many different ways. Whereas when you're doing traditional programming, you do a certain type of thing. A query will pull data out of a database. You'll have other types of things that will involve stored procedures, or you may have other computational things that are going on. And it's very difficult to provide this kind of instruction. This is why software development is such a specialized field of study. But with a prompt, it shifts the emphasis. You're no longer telling the machine exactly what to do and exactly what order. Instead, you are giving human-like instructions. You're simply providing words to a machine to tell it what it is you want it to do or achieve once you hit that submit button. Did I miss anything important?
I think I would add that there's two like sub-genres of prompts, right?
Yeah.
Then you have the system prompt where, making it, you may have seen like you're a helpful assistant, you do this, that, and other blah, blah, blah. I kind of look at that as like your job description, and then the prompt itself, kind of deviating a little bit from the analogy, which I think is a great analogy, by the way.
It is.
And so
I agree.
your day-to-day prompt that gets, you have your system prompt with every time you put input into an LLM, you get that system prompt and then prepended to your your prompt input. Your prompt input is the task that you want to do. And what you were getting at, Bronwyn, is that that's usually described in plain English. And as Brian has pointed out on previous episodes, for decades, we were trying to use plain English to tell computers to do the stuff and have the computer recognize that task. And it's only been here in the last couple of years that that's been like a thing, right? And so, I think that's where I would, without going into tokenization and a bunch of stuff that are only a portion of our audience probably really cares about. I think that pretty much sums it up.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And the differentiation that you nailed about the system prompt versus the user prompt. The system prompt helps establish the environment, and then the user prompt is the individual transaction, I guess.
Yeah, and important for security stuff is a lot of guardrails. Some guardrails to keep the model from doing certain things and doing certain behaviors are oftentimes in the system prompt as a layer of defense. Now, I'm sure at this point most folks have heard about prompt injection, and that is the security issue with prompts where the LLM itself cannot distinguish between what is good input and bad input, so to speak, or input with malicious intent. As far as the LLM is concerned, it's really just input and output. It sees a token stream. And so it is a mistake to think that either the system prompt guardrails or internal guardrails are fail-safe kind of things.
Cool. Well, let's move on to talk about skills. All right, skills, and how do these differ from prompts? I would almost say to an extent that skills are it's kind of like really fancy prompts that you store.
Yeah,
right?
it's like a trick question, right? Because it's turtles all the way down. At some point,
Yeah,
it's all really
it
a
is.
prompt, right? But yeah, so differentiating what a skill is, I would say that is typically going to be what we would as a human consider to be more programmatic, right? Like it's going to be something that you're going to use time and time again. So for example, in the world of pen testing, and I'm not saying that we do this, I am saying that this is an example, right? You could have write pen test report as a skill that takes in a certain type of data, and out on the other side comes a report with the same formatting and everything every time. Now, I'm being very vague about that on purpose, but that prompt is probably, or that skill rather, is probably a collection of something like TypeScript, maybe some Python. There's probably some YAML involved, depending on your harness, right? Which is another word that is in the word soup of vocabulary here. But you're right, Brian. The skill is, I would look at that as sort of like maybe like a meta prompt.
I
Where
think I have the perfect analogy for it.
all right.
A skill is a recipe.
I like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
I would agree with that.
Think about what a recipe is: a series of instructions, and they may be simple or they may be complex.
they're
And
usually the same.
outcome,
Every time.
yeah, but the outcome of successfully performing a recipe is a defined product of some sort. And I think the same applies to a skill. Do this, then
like
do
that.
that, then do this other thing, and output it in this format.
And
Yep.
then
It's a recipe.
some harnesses I've noticed. I've been playing with Hermes here recently, and I'll just quickly define a harness as a collection of all the stuff that we're talking about that interfaces with your large language model. So that's sort of like the end, extra bonus word of the day, right? And so I think that really the name of the game is to make a skill be something that is repeatable. And something that
Yes.
Hermes does that's kind of neat is it'll start self-making skills based on how like it's self-learning. It's like, so I've been working with it recently. It's like, I think you need a skill for this. You keep doing this. I'm like, go for it. Let's make a skill.
See,
there we go.
And I have to nag Claude to make skills for me. So, no, I
and I
really am
think,
looking forward to getting Hermes.
Yeah, and going along with the recipe analogy, which I think is fantastic, I think it plays really well into the non-determinism as well too, right? Because we have the set of instructions, and ideally, like those instructions would be followed exactly, and we would get the same output each time. But it's not always the case, right? I mean, like I don't know, when I make stuff, like maybe I forget an ingredient, or maybe like I leave it on the stove for too long, or there's always like these weird probabilistic things that random things that come up. And it's no different with the skills too, that most of the time we're going to get the same thing out, but there is a little bit of room for non-determinism as well cooked
Well,
into that.
even
Yeah, I
if
think
you
that's a
get
good point
two
too.
cooks that are similar skill level, you give them the same recipe, there are going to be slight differences because of what they
That's
bring to the party. And in the
mhm.
same way, the different models and the different supporting stuff will bring different things to the party when you run a skill.
Yep.
Well, if
Yeah.
you are someone that took Bronwyn's class, or you've taken some class on prompt engineering, you probably have already realized that you could use it like a chat bot and just put your question in, you get results, right? Or you can be more specific in what you want and give roles and like, I want you to do this, 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 and this. And back when I still use chatbots, I really don't so much anymore. I would be very detailed and specific with instructions on what I wanted. But moving to a coding agent or an agent, it's not all about code now. It's about tools and everything. Moving to that, like the whole like game was to make things more deterministic, in my opinion, right? To make it more repeatable, to put more of a framework around the token stream that you're putting into the large language model to get the same or very similar result each time. But you are correct, Brian. There still is a little bit of variance in there from time to time. So
So I think that mentioning the agent portion of that, or basically the tooling portion, leads us right into the next terminology, vocab word, which is tools. So let's talk a little bit about tools. So what's the difference between, say, a tool and a skill?
The
yeah,
tool is
I
called
would
by a skill.
yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say is, yeah, I think that tools are something that uh, the model will, I'll use the word choose, which, is probably not the right word, but words are problematic. The model chooses, based on your input, a course of action that involves using a tool that it has access to. Let's say that you had a tool that did database lookups in a customer database. When you asked, when you put in, tell me about customer XYZ, somewhere in that system prompt, there's probably a say, hey, here's your list of tools. And when somebody asks about this thing, use this tool, right? And so then the model goes, hey, I have access to curl or bash or my database lookup tool, and I'm going to use that to get more context, which is a word we haven't used yet, but to get more context around what my task is. And so I would say that the tool is generally what we would still consider to be a tool that a human could use. Like the most common tool used by my agents these days is curl. And so basically curling a website and bringing back, the data, it uses that tool. When I say, hey, go off this website and get data, it'll bring it back, and it'll, then use that data from the tool as part of its prompt context.
Yeah, that makes sense. So basically, it's presented with a problem, and it has all these different options that it can choose from to help solve that problem. Similar to you're working on a project at home, and it's like, oh, I've got a screw that needs fastened. So then you're like, okay, well, what do I got in my toolbox? Oh, look, I've got a screwdriver. This will be the right tool for that. You pick it out and go for it.
Yeah,
Not
hopefully it
not
doesn't
too.
pick the hammer, right?
Yeah,
Or,
I
well,
mean, use the tools you got.
Yeah.
we also had the cooking analogy, so it could be that, all right, I've got the recipe. Now I've got the recipe, I've got the ingredients. Now I need to combine them. Oh, I need a mixer over here. Oh, I need, this type of knife over here. Oh, I need to do this. The tools are just that, the tools for
Yep.
accomplishing small tasks as part of the larger task, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
I like that one. This is
I
a
like that
tricky
too.
one. Memory.
Hmm.
Like this is one that even until here recently, I was making it more complicated than I think it really, really is.
You make things more
I know.
complicated?
Go figure. So anybody want to take a stab at it, or you want me to do it?
I'm curious to hear your stab at it.
All right. So memory, just like we'll use the cooking analogy, right? Memory is essentially not the memory of the chef or the LLM where that they remember to do things, because the LLM does not have the capacity to remember your previous input, right? And so it has to have some mechanism to know what you've done in the past. And so back on the chatbot analogy, I used to, we're talking about chatbots. I used to describe, your context window, you have your system prompt, and then you have, the response, or your system prompt, your prompt, and then the response. And then your next input actually sends all of that stuff. Well, that same thing is still true with agents, where it's keeping all of this thing. You have a context window, which have gotten quite large here recently. That's basically all the input and output that's going into the LLM. Well, memory is sort of like a side thing to that. Typically, it's text files that are kept in, a folder in your, harness directory in Claude. And the harness needs to know, hey, I have memory here and I can go look up and see. And so memory to me is basically important things that I've done that the harness was like, hey, or I said, hey, commit this to memory. And then in the future, when I say, hey, use the VPS out in DigitalOcean that we've been using by this name, it might go and check and say, oh, I've got this memory. Or one that I did do here recently that was in memory. I was like, it kept forgetting how to do pull requests at GitHub. It would figure it out each time. I'm like, why? And so I finally said, commit to memory. This is how we do this. And then now it does that. It does the same thing every time now. Now, should I have a skill instead of a memory? Well, I mean, I think it all just depends, right? But to me, this is just a kind of repository of previous context that the model can pull from. And so that's why I was confused, memory. I get why we call it that, but it's not like it's not like computer memory. It's not like, people memory. It's like kind of a new kind of memory. Look at it as a series of a series of texts that the LLM can remember from. Maybe that's why they called it memory.
Well, if I can jump in here, there's been doing a lot of stuff with Claude lately, and also as I was telling Brian earlier, had an interesting experience with my roommate in terms of memory and how much the LLMs retain about us. If we roll back to the analogy of the LLM as an intern, a really good intern will take notes of what the preferences and likes and dislikes are of the mentor who is guiding them, and will also make notes of how to perform specific tasks. So I think of the memory as the intern's notes of important details that they need in order to do whatever. Now, one of the other things that can be done, though, is that you can force load or force feed the memory of an LLM. And this is where I should probably not derail this conversation, but my roommate has been fighting with the VA for benefits, and I've tried to counsel him about what to share and what not to share, but he's not a geek. He's not a techie. And he did what any normal person would do, and every single form that he needed to review, he shared. And we got to talking about something, and I asked him to run a prompt through Perplexity, asking it what it knew about him, and the scales fell from his eyes. Now, this is a little bit different from what happens normally in a memory. And one of the things about memory is that we as humans do have some degree of agency over what an LLM does and does not remember. The first way that we control what an LLM remembers is by what it is that we share with that LLM, either through what we enter in or what we upload to it for processing and analysis. The other thing is that we can request and require, hey, add this to memory. I still have an ongoing battle with all of my LLMs about inline dashes, and I'm losing it, but I keep
Oh, I
fighting
won
the
that
good
battle.
fight.
You want to know how I won that battle? Like it
You
actually,
won it?
yeah. So I have a personal context portfolio that I created. But I'm listening to the AI Daily podcast. So shout out to the AI Daily
Oh.
podcast. I'm definitely a listener. I really like it. And they have projects, and one of them was a personal context portfolio. This is months ago I did it, and so basically I used their personal context portfolio, and one of the questions was like, what is a hard no, right? And I was like, emojis and M dashes all over the place, right? And now almost every pass that I have something created at the end, there's a hook, and well, now Life OS
I
that
have like
goes and
12 entries in memory with Claude, and he
yeah.
still gives me freaking M
Yeah, you need
dashes.
you need a hook, which is not a vocabulary. We'll leave hook for another episode. You need a hook that calls like the right thing every single time. But anyway, it's recalling from memory that Derek doesn't like M dashes all over the place, right? Because
I'm going to circle
or
back with you
emojis.
later. Definitely, we are going to talk.
Yeah, but that personal context portfolio I share with, some of the harnesses, like my main like Claude harness, and then I've been trying to move to like a Docker setup again. But like it's basically meant to be portable, so I don't have to explain myself. I don't explain that I'm a pen tester working on this like all the time kind of thing. And so, yeah. But all of that is memory that is essentially, again, just files that are going to get put in your token stream as part of what ultimately is still just a prompt that's going into the LLM. Because the LLM doesn't have the features that we're talking about. Like, for simplicity's sake, like when Bronwyn's saying, like, hey, I upload it to the LLM. Yes, but not really. It's really the harness that's around that LLM, and it's just that our language is imperfect describing these things. And even in the show notes, like one of the words was teaches. And it's like, well, I like it. I think more shows than teaches, right? And so we changed it. And so, and I think that it's all of this is all of this AI stuff is analogous to the human brain in such a way, but it's not the same. And we use the same words, and sometimes it bothers me. Actually, it's just when people say they train an LLM, like, okay, that's one word that I'm to draw the line in the sand, that you need to mean what you mean that for that one.
Well, so
Ryan,
I
You
guess
wanna
it's the
take-
sub-agents, right?
yes.
yeah, so let's go on to the last one here, subagents. So a subagent is basically it's agent that can have all the things that we've discussed here, kind of in its own little compartment. If it wants, it can share these things with other agents as well. But when I say things, I mean prompt, skills, memory, tools. Each subagent can have its own set of these different items to accomplish a more specific task versus being generalized. And so typically what you would have is you have an orchestrator agent, some kind of an orchestrator that is, we'll say, kind of like the project manager that's delegating out all the tasks to the different subagents. And so it's passing off just the information that each subagent needs to accomplish its goal. And then the subagent takes that granular information or focused information, and then it can call upon its own skills, its own memory, its own system prompts, its own tools, so that it is doing just the tasks that it needs to do, with the idea that if you have more focus on getting these specific tasks done, you're likely going to get better results than having something that's much more general and broad across the spectrum, if you will. So little experts at their own little tasks that we can delegate out to.
That whole strategy is so effective. There is, and again, shout out to Daniel Miesler and what was Pi and is now Life OS. but there's a research skill in there that I use all the time. And Claude is the orchestrator, and I have Anthropic and, OpenAI and Google keys, Gemini key, like API keys. And so when I research a topic, just by default, it's going to use Anthropic, it's going to use OpenAI, like ChatGPT, and it's going to use Gemini, and then take that stuff and put it together for me. And it is really effective. I really like that skill. So
I'm seeing more and more instances where people are calling multiple LLMs as subagents for research projects and basically having them cage match it out in terms of what the best data is to come back.
But it also doesn't have to be, right? Because it could be, let's just say that I had a scenario where I custom made my own subagents for like web app pen testing. Well, I could give one like authorizations tasks to go look at, and I could give one, fuzzing task to go do. And that way the LLM, like Brian was saying, is giving a narrower task, because I think just in general, the more specific you can be with your input into an LLM, the better results you're going to be. You don't want it to be a generalized thing. I mean, that's really the name of the game with all these things that we've been talking about and harnesses, and is to give more context, to be very specific, to get more deterministic results.
So since this is an analogy-heavy episode, I wanted to throw out two possible analogies for the subagent. One would be a project manager. I've done a bit of project management. That role seems to kind of fit. Another one would be the conductor of an orchestra, helping conduct the different instruments to make everything come together.
And some harnesses are kind of built that way. Like I've been messing around with open code, and its whole thing is that you make agents to do like specific tasks. And I kind of like that. And so I think we need to tie this all together to security, right? And so we did mention earlier in the prompting that this, was prompt injection was kind of the main type of a task or attack, kind of a risk. But with skills, I think that there are things stored, so you might have to worry more about kind of like a supply chain kind of thing. Tools grant agents agency. So back in the chat days, we used to say, giving it a tool is granting it agency, but I think that kind of got overtaken by the whole agent term. And so excessive privilege is really the risk that you have with tools. Memory adds persistence, and just like, stored cross-site scripting, stored injection or some kind of poisoning is the risk. And then subagents add delegation, so broken trust chains, which I guess is getting at more of, do I trust the input that's coming from my multiple agents? Did I miss anything on those? I think that's about right.
You want to send us out here, Brian?
Sure, let's do it. So I hope that this episode helped clear up some of the terminology for everyone out there who's starting to dip their toes into the agentic side of AI now that that's becoming all the rage. And I hope you enjoyed this episode, and tune in next time and keep on prompting.